Hey everybody, my name is James. I'm another one of the hosts here at eduStream. I want to say thank you again to George and Gary for kicking off the show. Now I kind of wanted to take a little bit different of an approach and talk to some of the teachers that may be watching. And I really want to talk about some of the ways that we can incorporate video into the classroom. Now, one thing that Gary and George talked a lot about were LMS and CMS systems, which are lecture management systems. These are systems that you can connect something like a Pearl to be able to have your classes automatically recorded and then sent to this platform where your students can then log in, they can watch the videos after, they can watch it at their own pace. And some of those features also include like being able to have quizzes. So you can have a student watch the lecture and then take a quiz right after. Some of these other features also include the ability to monitor who watched and how long did they watch. So it's great to have the integration into these lecture management systems. And again, the Pearl systems have already automatic integration with some of the most popular ones like Panopto, Kaltura, OpenCast, and Yuja. Now, I kind of wanted to talk about the role of video in modern education and why a teacher should consider utilizing video to enhance their learning. And right off the bat, one of the things is engagement. I don't know about every student, but I do a little bit better when I am watching something and I am definitely more engaged. I hate to say it, but we all have a kind of short-term interest these days. And so if you can have a video playing and you can have some animation playing, that's going to make it much more engaging. A perfect example of this, and we'll talk about another example in science too, but like if you are filming a science experiment in a science class, well, then now your students can watch it and then not only be able to see the science experiment, but if it's on video and you're shooting on, let's say a camera that shoots at 60 frames per second or maybe even 120 frames per second, you can slow that video down and see exactly what is going on in that science experiment. So it's always good to have video to go and enhance the normal, in front of the classroom type of teaching. And then of course, accessibility. Again, once this video is on a lecture management system or on YouTube or wherever you want to place it, it allows the students to then be able to get access to that class again. So, a perfect example of this is if you are a math teacher and you are teaching your students how to solve a very complicated, equation or something like that, to have the students be able to go in, when they're doing their homework that night or over the weekend, to be able to access that video to say, oh, how did we break this down again? Well, now they can rewatch it and rewatch it as many times as they need to learn at their own pace. Definitely accessibility is super important when it comes to education. And, you teachers work hard. I'm not going to claim that I'm a teacher, but I know that teachers work hard and you're only with your students for, 8 hours a day or something like that. So being able to have access to this education again is great for those students. And then the last thing that I wanted to say is again, I'm not a teacher, but I have a personal visual learning. So I tend to be able to retain more information when I am watching a video. And so to be able to, again, rewatch the video, or if a teacher is coming at it from a different perspective, then that will make it a little bit more interesting. And then my attention is more focused on the video. Now, the next thing that I wanted to get into here is talking about different ways that you can utilize video in a classroom. Now, of course, we have the tried and true being and recording your lecture. But if you already have some of this video equipment in place, whether it's something like a Pearl system and a PTZ camera, or even a DSLR or a camcorder, there are different ways that you can get the video involved. And one of them is, you can create instructional videos. I kind of already said this a little bit, but again, if you are a math teacher, yeah, you can record your lecture and then have that online. But then maybe you make a little bit more of a produced video with maybe a little bit of animation to explain how that equation is being broken down, and then being able to show that, maybe mixed in with your lecture. Because again, when you have animations or just a different perspective to teaching something, sometimes students will be able to retain it in different ways. The next thing is, again, documenting experiments, especially for something like a science class, being able to slow down that video to really see exactly where did the combustion happen, when did the gas turn into a liquid or liquid turn into a gas, being able to have the video there to enhance it. And then also, same thing with with math. So let's say that that you want your students to be able to do this science experiment the next day. If you've already made a video documenting what you want them to do, step-by-step instructions, you can say, hey, I want you to watch this tonight. So as soon as we go into class tomorrow morning, I can give you all of the stuff, and then we can just get right into the experiment. We don't have to waste time going over step by step what to do. Obviously, you will want to go over it as you're doing it, but it can save a little bit of time with the students when you are in person with them. The other thing is, I want it would be nice to get students to be engaged more too. And everybody has a phone in their pocket to be able to record things. And so why not try and incorporate some video into your projects? So let's say that, you're teaching a history class, and you want to make sure that your students are retaining that information. Well, now have them make some kind of video essay explaining what did George Washington do, or whatever the history event is that you were talking about. Being able to say, hey, the school has these limited numbers of, let's say camcorders or DSLRs, and have the students be able to take it home and then be able to make their own videos. Another thing is to practice speech, being able to talk in front of a camera, being able to talk in front of a classroom. Some people don't want or do well talking in front of a classroom, but maybe they can talk in front of a camera and then be able to play the video to show like, hey, yes, I did retain this information. I just don't feel comfortable standing in front of the class and explaining it. One of my favorite things to do is do exactly what we just did with George Burchell, and that's have a guest join your lecture. And one of the ways that you can do that is with video. All we did was have a very simple Teams call running with George Burchell. We brought it into our production system, and now he's interacting with Gary, who could be considered the teacher in this situation. And like George and Gary were saying, utilizing NDI to bring a PowerPoint presentation into it to be able to talk about it. In this example, and I've done this, and this is why I think it's a good example, is, let's say that you're reading a book in your English Lit class, and you reached out to the author, and the author is able to join a Teams call. Well, now you can bring that into your lecture as well. Whereas, the teacher may not be able to fly out to the school, but this author may be able to say, hey, yeah, I can hop on a Zoom call for 30 minutes and be able to talk to your students and make it a little bit more, again, engaging, interactive, encourage the students to finish the book so then they can ask the creator of said book, hey, why did you do this? Why did that character do this or that or the next thing? We're really just trying to think of different ways that you can utilize video other than just doing your lecture. And again, this can be in pretty much any type of class, whether it's science, the arts, math, history, English literature. There are so many different ways that you can bring video into these classes, give a different perspective to your students to be able to try and retain that information just another different way. Now, we were talking a little bit about how you can implement this across a campus. And one of the ways to do that is utilizing NDI. And if you don't know what NDI is, NDI stands for Network Device Interface, and that is where you put a video feed onto a local network, and then any device that is NDI compatible can communicate with that. And so a perfect example is an Epiphan Pearl system, a PTZ camera, and you put both of those devices onto your local network, and now the PTZ camera can communicate with the Pearl system. Now, the other beauty of it is when you're utilizing NDI, a lot of the times the NDI devices, whether it's a PTZ camera or an encoder or decoder, a controller, doesn't really matter. A lot of the times they can also be powered over something called power over Ethernet. So you can use a single cable from your network switch, and we're always going to recommend the M4250 line of network switches, but you can have a single cable connected to your network switch to your camera, and then you can get power, you can get video, and you can get control all through that one cable. And with some of our manufacturers, such as BirdDog, who we will be talking with in another segment, they have cameras that are now available that are wireless NDI with batteries built into them. So you can actually get completely wireless NDI video feeds and control onto your network. And then the great thing about NDI as well is it's very low latency, but you still get high quality. With every iteration of NDI, now we're on NDI HX3, it's kind of like the Goldilocks, it gets better and better. It uses less bandwidth on your network, but it still produces that same quality. And with NDI 6 and 6.1 and further iterations of NDI, they're adding even more quality by making it so HDR cameras and HDR video feeds can be brought onto your network. Again, utilizing NDI HX3, you're putting that high quality HDR video, 4K 60p video on your network, and it's not taking up that much bandwidth, but it's still going to look great. And again, it's super flexible. If you have a camcorder and you plug an HDMI cable into it and you plug that into your into a switch of some sort, well, you are kind of limited to it's just a point-to-point connection. Whereas NDI, once it's on the network, it can be accessed by any other NDI device on the network. Perfect example of that is if you are doing a play in your auditorium and you take that and you want to watch that NDI feed in a different building, you can download NDI tools onto a computer for free, connect it to the same network, and then use NDI Studio Monitor to monitor those cameras. And that's all for free. You don't have to pay anything extra for it. And so NDI is super, super flexible. You can have cameras even across multiple buildings too with stuff like NDI Bridge. So NDI is super, super flexible and one of the best ways to incorporate video throughout an entire campus. Now, I wanted to also just give a quick overview between the different types of cameras that are available on the market and that we carry, that other people carry. Our favorite is going to be, again, a PTZ camera. These stand for pan, tilt, zoom camera. So these are self-contained cameras. You stick a single cable into it, a Cat6 Ethernet cable into it. A lot of them are NDI compatible. A lot of them are PoE compatible. And through that single cable, you can move the camera to pan left or right. You can tilt the camera up or down, and you can even zoom in. And all of that video then goes onto your network if it's an NDI camera. And if it's not, a lot of them will have still HDMI, SDI, and USB output. The next kind of camera is what we like to call a box camera. And typically a box camera is going to be just the sensor and lens of a PTZ camera. So you're not going to get the pan or the tilt, but you still get the zoom and you still get the ability to remotely control things like exposure and color balance and all of that, because that camera will still be on the network. And if you know that you're going to have a fixed camera position, there's no need to spend the extra money to get a PTZ. You can just get a box camera. Now, let's say that you want to have a camera that is able to be moved and is basically point and shoot. That's where something like a camcorder would come into play. Typically, a camcorder is going to have a lens built into the system. You'll be able to record directly to the camera. A lot of them are also pretty small. You can carry them in one hand, and then you record directly to, most of the time, it's going to be an SD card. Now, a camcorder is great, again, because you can take it anywhere with you and you can record internally onto the camera. But the other thing with camcorders, and is kind of a downside with DSLRs, is a camcorder typically is going to not really have a recording limit. The recording limit is going to be until you run out of storage on your SD card, not the camera itself. So, long events that you want to record the whole thing, it might not be a bad idea to have a camcorder there. Now, DSLRs come into play, which are digital single lens reflex cameras or mirrorless cameras. When I say DSLRs, I mean cameras that have a detachable lens. Again, it's going to be similar to a camcorder in that it records internally, but with a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, you can have that lens and have interchangeable lenses. Unlike a PTZ camera, a box camera, or a camcorder, where the lens is integrated into the system. And you might be thinking, well, why would I want that? Typically, these cameras are going to be used for more stylized shooting. So you may want to get a lens that has a really low aperture, so you can have a nice shallow depth of field and make your shots look cinematic and stuff like that. Again, if you want your students to go out and, let's say, make a historical reenactment or a video essay of some sort, maybe they want to get a little bit more creative, have a shallower depth of field on their camera, and so they're, have a soft focus on their face and their background completely out of focus. That is much easier to do on something like a DSLR if you get the appropriate lenses.